the leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get set again.
You are listening live to the Vito and Vito Show. Disrespectful to the executive branch.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
Don't sign the damn deal, and the president will...
Therefore, I do not believe that the majority can vote a man's life or property or freedom away from him.
And we're live here on the Vito and Vito Show. I'm Vito.
And I'm Vito.
And we want to welcome everyone to listening here tonight to the Vito and Vito Show. Check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com, and give us a follow, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vito and Vito Show. Mm-hmm. Vito, we got a live studio audience here in the house tonight.
That's right. My mom's down here watching.
This is fantastic. We're broadcasting live in the basement of the Empire State Building because we cannot afford the first nor the other 99 floors that are in the Empire State Building. But, man, we got a show for you. Paris Attacks. We got a guest calling in. He's probably a liberal, so we're going to try to have a little fun here. But before we go any further, I want everyone to know just what they're listening to right now here on the Vito and Vito Show.
We're bringing you the perspectives of two college-age millennial conservative libertarians out of liberal hellhole, Brooklyn, New York, who are committed to defending the principles of freedom, free markets, and conservatism.
Freedom, conservatism.
Yada, yada. We hold no punches here at the show. Vito, let me finish saying what's on the teleprompter before you cut me off.
Oh, listen, Barack, let's slow it down, would you? Listen,
let me be clear.
This is not the show for political correctness. We are not politically correct tonight. Man, we're going to rip apart Islam. We're going to rip apart the ISIS attacks. We're going to go into a little philosophy. We're even going to go into a little political pragmatism. But man, is it going to be a hell of a show tonight because you're listening to the best in conservative talk, self-identified. No one ever told us that.
I tell you that, Vito.
But that's enough for me. All right, let's get started. This is going to be a great show, ladies and gentlemen. But unfortunately, before we go any further, I want to first reflect and get on a real serious note. The attacks in Paris is something that I think we all need to recognize. And just before we go into critiquing the current strategies and the issues that we see in the world today, I want to first start off by saying that the Vito and Vito Show does send out their condolences to the families involved at the Paris attacks at the hands of ISIS. So you're in our thoughts, in our prayers, and we want to first start the show off with that. Man, I mean, Vito, you've seen what's going on in the news. You see what ISIS is capable of, and now you see what they've done in Paris. Plus the videos coming out now that they want to attack Times Square. Remember, we are from New York. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn, New York, so this is right in our backyard. I mean, it's some crazy stuff that's going on out there.
I mean, these people are animals. They're disgusting. It's an absolute shame what happened in Paris. But this, people have to learn and see what happens and take from what's happening in France and try to protect the United States and do what we have to do here. Mm-hmm. And we'll get more in details into that, including the crisis with the controversy with the Syrian refugees.
Right.
So we'll get more into that later in the show.
Yeah, I mean, us here on the show, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but Vito could jump in if he agrees with me or disagrees, but I am on the side of not allowing any Syrian refugees into this country in light of the attacks and in light of the ISIS situation in the Middle East. Would you agree? Or?
Well, like most things, I do agree with you.
Great.
But we'll...
Even on the same name. But, I mean, it's something to think about. We're going to get into it a little later on in the program. But, man, what we see going on here in the world is that we see terror, and we see this terrorism coming out of one holy book in particular, or so they call it a holy book, and it is the Quran, and it is Islam and the ideology of Islam. And I want to get our guest coming on. He's a journalist. His name is Brian Vines. He works here in Brooklyn on on Brooklyn.
BK Live is the show that he invited us on.
Yeah.
Here on TV in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Independent Media. So he's a journalist, and we'll get his thoughts and views on Islam and ISIS coming up in a few minutes.
Because what you've noticed is that the President of the United States will not call out radical Islam. He will not say this is Islamic extremism. He will not call out the root ideology of why these terror attacks are taking place. And it's because he wants to play the political correct game. He doesn't want to upset or fray the waters with those that he thinks are going to attack him because he says a different point of view, which is what you've noticed is the prime motive of radical Muslims out there. When you hold a different view, draw a picture of Muhammad, or step out of line, apparently that's cause for death in their eyes.
And no Democrat would call them out either, including on the Democrat debate. Even though Hillary was calling for ground troops, she still won't call out and call them radical Islam. You won't call them Islamic.
Hey, I mean, you saw the Democratic debate, right?
Of course. Saturday night. What else am I doing on a Saturday night?
That's right. Keep the women at home. Listen, Saturday night you had the Democratic debate, the second Democratic debate. You had Martin O'Malley, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton up on that stage, and all of them, when asked the question, are we at war with radical Islam, said no. How could that possibly be? Vito, what does the first word in ISIS stand for? The first letter in ISIS, excuse me.
Islamic.
Islamic.
But it's not Islamic, Vito.
No, it's not Islamic. The president won't call it Islamic, but neither will the rest of the world leaders, which is why I gotta ask this question. I just got to. Why is it that the president won't call out Islam for what it is? It's got a dangerous, evil streak in it, and it's not because I'm trying to be a bigot or a racist. Certainly, first of all, Islam's not a race, so get off the table. But this is a more serious question. When you look at Islam, the ideology, and I'm not the only one to say this, Christopher Hitchens, who just recently passed, was a socialist atheist, one of the militant atheists with Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, and all of these guys would call out Islam. Bill Maher is another example of a liberal. I don't agree with him on anything, but here's a guy coming out, calling out Islam and saying it's a dangerous religion. But you got schmucks like Ben Affleck and President Obama who won't call this thing out.
Even Bill Maher did.
Yes, thank you for repeating everything I just said with that one sentence. Thank you for summarizing. I just said that.
I'm summarizing.
Our listeners are not stupid. They can stay with us. But I mean, Vito, why? I mean, and this is the scariest part here, is that when you look at President Obama, because he's the leader of the free world, the man's got a responsibility to lead the world and to lead freedom, and he will not call out radical Islam. And you know why he won't call it out?
Why not, Vito?
Two reasons why. One, he's afraid of angering the radical Muslim base, because if he does, those who are actively blowing themselves up, and those who support those people that do that.
So, okay, hold on, because they're not angry at the United States already? Does that make any sense?
What do you mean?
For Obama to not try to anger these people? Because are they not upset that they're happy and they're peaceful? That we're not going to bomb, that we're not going to threaten Times Square unless Obama calls us Islamic, because they are Islamic. They call themselves Islamic.
Well, this is the president's mindset, and almost the mindset of every other isolationist in the world, is that America is the problem. Our footprint in the Middle East, our involvement overseas is the problem, and that just ignites the flames and the tensions of these Islamic terrorists. That's why they came to be.
That's why he apologizes for America.
That's why Osama bin Laden turned on us, is so the argument that a lot of people make, even the Ron Paul people, who I happen to like a lot. But when you look at the issue on the whole context here, Islam has been at war with the Renaissance, with the Enlightenment ideas such as liberty and freedom and self-interest and self-ownership and property rights and individualism since the beginning of its inception, since the 7th century on. All we've seen out of Islam, if you think about it, there has been some bright lights in the Arab lands in terms of mathematics and algebra and things like that. But when you look at the general context, when you look at the overview point, you're seeing a religion dominated by tyrants and clerics who are pent up on zealotry to do nothing but destroy the Western values. Those Western values being liberty and freedom and democracy and things like that, all for the sake of praising and giving thanks to a sick, tyrannical being named Allah. And I think that's something that we have to address before we go any further. You have to call a spade a spade. No one wants to say it, and the only handful of people that are saying it are on the main stage is Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, and I really can't think of anybody else, or maybe all the Republican candidates with the exception of a few.
Most Republicans do call them out, but we have to understand, you have to see the root of the problem before you do anything else. That's with any problem anybody ever has, especially something of this giant scale. And what about the moderate Muslims?
Ha! Where are they? Where are these so-called moderate majority Muslims? I'm waiting for them.
Like we saw in France during the soccer game. During one of the soccer games, there's a moment of silence. And what did these moderate, in air quotes, Muslims do?
What do they do?
They booed
I
during
saw that.
the moment of silence and started chanting Allah Akbar.
Yeah. Yep. It was in Turkey, by the way, which is a moderate, self-described moderate Muslim country.
99.8% of the population are Muslims, but they're moderate, they say.
So they say. So they say. But I mean, where are they? Where are these moderate Muslims that everybody keeps talking about? There are some Arab leagues out there that condemn the attacks. But why aren't they protesting in the streets? How come you don't see them going down to the Middle East trying to negotiate different types of interpretations of the Quran with these Muslim clerics? You don't see it, ladies and gentlemen, because when taken to the extreme, it is acceptable within Islam to kill those who leave the religion, to stone people who disagree with you, to kill women and treat them as second-class citizens. And what bothers me the most, Vito, what really grinds my gears is the fact that liberals will sit here and say there's a war on women from Republicans, that Republicans hate women, that it's the Republicans' fault that women are second-class citizens in America, when they're not able to look across the sea and see what is just happening, not just to women, but to gays, what's happening to all types of people, to Christians and those that disagree with the zealots over in the Middle East.
Right. These countries that are beheading women, Iran will rather pay for your sex change if you're a homosexual man.
Right.
Unless they'll kill you.
Right.
So a sex change, so they don't kill you. Beheading women, stoning women, okay? They blame the women if they get raped. Does any of this logic make sense?
No, it doesn't, because it's not logical. I mean, it's all rooted in this notion of a mystical being.
But then you have the only
in
country
Allah.
in the Middle East that respects rights. That's Israel. And they are ranked last in women's rights by the UN. The United Nations.
Yep. Oh, don't even get me
Let's not get started on the
UN.
UN. Okay? How BS old the UN is.
I mean, listen, the UN is another issue to be dealt with. But I mean, I just find the stark contrast really something to look at because, and I want to make this other point too in terms of Islam. Let's just take some of these different Islamic perspectives. Some of the arguments we've heard. Number one, Islam is a peaceful religion. Well, I mean, we can point to many different verses in the Quran that specify what to do with those who disagree. And I think everybody unanimously agrees. And I love it how people will then point to the Bible and Judaism and will say, well, look at these holy books. Obviously, they say something different. They say the same thing. Deuteronomy and Leviticus and all these other books in these holy books. And I would say, well, yeah, and I would be against Christians, and I would be against Jews, and I would be against all of these types of groups and all these types of religions if they currently do that. The difference is Christianity and Judaism had renaissances, they underwent enlightenment periods, they had different covenants with God, and you started to see a change in the difference. I'm no theologian, but I will say this point, and I will make it clear. Islam has never had a renaissance, and that is why we are at war. Yes, at war with Islam. Vito? We're at war with this ideology that hates Western values, and I'm just angry that nobody is willing to say it, and if you do, you're considered an Islamophobe or a racist.
Which doesn't make sense. Islam is
it
not a
doesn't.
race,
Exactly.
number one. And Islam has declared war in the world, okay? This is not the first time. Do you remember the Crusades?
Absolutely. I mean, what was another name for the Crusades? And we've heard this a lot. The acts against the Christians were protecting from Muslim invasions, the act of Muslim aggression.
So
you
why?
see things like that.
Why? Why does this keep happening? They're not just living all these centuries ago in the Middle Ages, but this is what the Quran says. And people point out, well, the Quran says, oh, you have to love everybody. But you have to, what about the parts that contradict that? The parts when people, these Muslims, who only follow these things strictly, the quote-unquote real Muslims or the fundamentalists, who is a large part, almost half, of so many people self-described Muslims.
Right. And let's not forget, let's just go through some historical moments. In Islam, you had the Bombay Pirates, you had the Crusades, you had things like, I'm drawing a blank here, Osama bin Laden, the Iranian Revolution in the contemporary sense. You had radical extremism in Islam going back to Thomas Jefferson. So these issues are permeating in American culture and especially world culture, and nobody seems to want to talk about this on the grand stage with fear of being, without fear of being called a racist or an Islamophobe. And really, Vito, what baffles me is that nobody wants or has the balls to stand up against the fact that yes, we are at war with Islam. And nobody wants to say anything about that, and we tend to sugarcoat the issue, and we tend to say, oh, but Islamic, not all Muslims are like that. You think all Muslims are racist, and in reality, they're not. Not all Muslims are racist. I agree with that. Not all Muslims want to go ahead and kill us or something like that. But when taken to its extreme, or when taken to its literal interpretation, yeah, Islam wants to see these things happen, and they allow for it as well. That's my problem, Vito, with Islam, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not afraid to say it. I know we've gotten into a lot of fights on our college campuses over stuff like that, and that's just something we got to talk about. That is something we got to talk about. I mean, we tend to get in trouble here from our college campuses for speaking out against this issue. For saying that Islam is not a good ideology. It holds dangerous ideas.
And nobody on the college campuses, because I've said this many times at Brooklyn College, nobody wants to have an educational discussion. Nobody wants to actually bring up points and have a debate. They just say I'm racist, I hate all Muslims, I hate this, I'm terrible, blah, 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 blah. But nobody wants to actually hold a conversation. Okay? Because I will happily talk to somebody about Islam. Okay? Anybody at the school. But how many times do you get blasted? Even the last article you wrote, that's on VitoandVito.com.
Hey, we're going to get to that in just a second, but we do have a guest calling in. He is from Brooklyn. Brooklyn Live?
BK Live.
BK Live. Brian Vines, he's a journalist, and I want to welcome him here to the Vito and Vito Show. Welcome to the show, Brian.
The late Brian Vines. Hello.
What's up, Brian? Look, it's great to have you on here. You're jumping in on our discussion over Islam and if it's an evil religion or not. We've seen the president not call the acts by radical Islamic terrorists. We here on the show tend to call them out because of that, and you're a journalist and stuff like that. So give us your honest, objective perspective on this. Why is it that the president won't call out radical Islam for what it is?
I've seen just in the last 12 hours, I've seen so many videos on YouTube of so many people stepping in it on something that seems to be so easy to answer. So I don't know, maybe it's one of those things that looks deceptively simple, but then when you're pressed, it's hard to answer. But I don't know, he seems to be getting a lot of traction out of telling people that they're popping off and speaking so plainly. Maybe he should just call a spade a spade. We don't want to insult a religion. Of course, there are bad actors in every scenario, and for every person who tries to equate Islam with terror, there's another person on the other side screaming that Christians have done this, and they were spouting from Tim McVeigh to the kid who walked into a church in the Carolinas, their Christianity. So I don't know, bad people are bad people all around.
Yeah, but I think you got to look at it this way, and I'm gonna use somebody that I don't really agree with because he's a liberal. Sam Harris, and I happen to really like him. He's one of the militant atheists, and he said, he was on Bill Maher, and he was going up against Ben Affleck. I think we all remember this,
right?
When Bill Maher and Ben Affleck got into that big fight. Well, he was right next to Bill Maher and said, ideas have consequences, and if you take not the interpretation of how people interpret it, but you just look at the ideas of Islam, and you've noticed that, well, why is it that we're not seeing... These are some pretty radical ideas. It's a justified interpretation of Osama bin Laden under Islam. And this is the argument he was making. He said how people interpret it is another thing, but Islam gives credible... the okay or the credibility to terrorists to carry out these attacks. And I think you can't really make that claim with Christianity when the same figure in Jesus Christ, if you will, is preaching love.
I don't know. Whenever people get into these texts, and, there are people much smarter than I am whose job it is or whose chosen vocation is to become real religious scholars. And when people start bringing out specific passages of the Quran or the Bible to cite things that they believe in, I can just think of the contradictory things that are there. And it seems most often people use these things not to embrace or promote love or understanding or acceptance, but as a weapon against other people. So I'm definitely not qualified enough in the Quran or the religion to speak to that, but just instinctually and looking at the numbers, and I'm sure this is a figure that you've seen about the number of Muslim people in New York City or America or the world, and if they were out to get us, then we'd be got already because the numbers are there.
Well, I know you definitely have an opinion on the Syrian refugee crisis. So many people are saying we should let them in, we should vet them, we should completely not let anybody come into the country. What do you think we should do with the Syrian refugees?
Well, I am married to a person who was a refugee, who was escaping Bosnia and that entire region. And it was something that is impactful to this day and changed the whole course of that family, certainly, and the country. But I have to come down on the sides of the folks who say we should always vet people who are coming into the country, but we shouldn't exclude Syrians when there's so many obvious holes in lots of immigration. If a white guy has some ideology and jumps on a plane and he just happens to be from Sweden and he's going to be held to a lesser standard just because we have these perceptions of people from over there, like everyone should be subjected to this scrutiny. Like times are changing.
Well, I wouldn't fight you on that. Yeah, of course, everyone should be subjected to the same level of scrutiny, absolutely. But I think you got to look at the situation and a more pragmatic view, where you see that Syria right now is undergoing a terrible crisis, and we already caught, or it has been reported that 5 Syrian refugees have been caught by the United States border and they were using fake passports to get into the United States. So you have evidence like that sort of coming out, and God knows what else is lurking in the 100,000, 20,000, 50,000 group of refugees that are going different places all over the world. So I just got to ask you this, and this is from a journalistic perspective. How do you deal with this in a fair way? Because this is such a hot and contentious issue. When you're reporting this issue, how do you objectively frame? Because you were a great interviewer, and you are very objective, which is just so rare to find these days. Unlike us, I mean, we're fools.
That's
we're
why I like you. I respect people with a perspective.
but you give an objective view that is not going to give a certain side the okay, and your personal beliefs are put aside. So how do you objectively deal with an issue like this that is so emotional, but at the same time so contentious?
Well, I think that you acknowledge the fact that it is emotional and that we are led by emotion and we have certain knee-jerk reactions, and we hope that our better angels intercede when we go a little too far. Like, I think the idea of these proposed religious tests may be a bridge too far, but when you hear other people talk about women and children and being denied entry into the country, that certainly pulls at the heartstrings. So it is not something that is easily answered, but that's why I generally ask the questions of people with opinions. But it really is something that I hope we would approach with the modicum of compassion that America is meant to have. But at the same time, if you're having a picnic, you don't invite the ants. And we know that there's a huge target right on the place where we live, and we want to guard against it as much as we can. But to echo de Blasio, it's like it becomes so un-American to say that we're closing these borders or we're going to shun these people. That's not the America that I think most of us...
I don't know, Ron. I gotta disagree, because when you're looking at this issue in terms of a national security perspective, you gotta take into account that these people can be used in dangerous ways. These people can be used as pawns, and that's the worst part. But here's another issue too. Why does the United States or the rest of Europe have to take in these refugees when there are other nations? And it's been reported that Jordan, for example, was willing to take them in. Now they're not willing to take them in, but they were relatively safe over there, and they're relatively safe in other Muslim countries. So why is it that we are the ones that have to accept these people under these contentious issues? And I to that point, I don't understand, because ISIS can use that as a vehicle, and I think the United States Congress, they have the authority to stop immigration, and that's up to them.
This is the finger in the dike question, though. It's like, why are we talking about juggling refugees around when it would be a good use of the world's resources, if this is indeed the world's problem, to go over there and make it safe for them to stay home? It's not something that these people just woke up one day and said, oh, it's time to move. Like, Assad is a bad guy. Like, we can go over there and focus on making a region safe for these people who would rather not be displaced than washing up on the shores of Greece. You know, it's a big picture answer, and we're getting so bogged down in the minutia that this guy is really driving the people away from his own country.
Yeah, well, you know, it's things like that I think we all could agree on, is that you got to make the place over there somehow stable and coherent, because it's been such a disaster. And you're right, the Syrian refugees they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's a result of Islamic extremism. It's a result of tyrannical and dictatorships over in the Middle East, and you got to do something about that issue. Brian, we got to wrap up our interview, but where can we follow you on social media and catch the show, BK Live? Tell us more about it as we wrap up our interview.
BK Live, as you well know from being two phenomenal guests and a phoner that you saved my life on one time, but BK Live is on Brick TV Monday through Thursday live at noon until 1 p.m. We're on your cable dial, or you can find us on the interwebs at Brick TV, brickartsmedia.org. And I'm just on the Twitter at bvines78. So I'm welcoming the discussion. I love to get into the dialogue. And thank you guys for having me on. This was fun.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much. We'd love to have you back on. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And that was Brian Vines of BK Live, journalist. And I got to say, he was pretty good. He's got some interesting perspective, but I had to disagree with him on Syrian refugees when he says that, you know, he's echoing Mayor de Blasio sentiments, and I can't stand Mayor de Blasio. Not at all. But when you look at this issue with that big perspective, the president said, and I got to quote Daniel P. Cola, he's in the chat at www.vitoandvito.com, the man to superstar, because just brought up a great point. Obama said ISIS is contained. Doesn't that mean the refugees can go back? If we're going to follow the president, yeah, exactly. If we're going to follow the president through on his word, if we're going to follow the leadership of this fool, then why can't we just send them all back?
This is why we never follow the leadership of this buffoon. You can't, because he says they're contained, and then a minute later, the attacks in Paris happen. So how are they contained?
They're not contained, and now you're going to bring about all of these refugees into the United States in an effort to make it beautiful and to make this wonderful short story of immigration. It's not the case, baby. We've seen 5, not 1, not 2, not 3, and not on separate circumstances, 5 Syrian refugees caught with fake passports linked to ISIS trying to get into the country. Explain to me, ladies and gentlemen, just how we can let in 100,000 refugees into this country without any possible consequences. ISIS, Vito, put out videos that said the United States is the next target, with New York City and Washington, D.C. being the prime hit places. You gotta be kidding me if you're President Obama or any foolish Democrat to accept that notion that it is okay, safe, and justified under American culture and values to accept possible terrorists. You gotta be out of your mind and smoking some heavy duty crack.
And they said how we're going to vet each refugee, but while a top FBI agent, top people in the government saying we don't have the resources yet to vet all of these people.
James Comey, the FBI director, hardly a partisan position, by the way. He's a Republican appointed under George W. Bush, said there is no way we could vet the Syrian refugees effectively.
So what happened? You let in hundreds of all these people, thousands and thousands of Syrians, because they're, orphans? What did Obama say? They're orphans and they need help.
It's an emotional pull.
Oh, pulling on the heartstrings of Americans.
That's a logical fallacy, by the way.
Look at that.
It's called an appeal to emotion. So
look at that.
It's not based on logic. We have to take this at its logical conclusions and its logical roots. Let's take it at this position, though. Why can't Palestine or Jordan or Saudi Arabia or any other, or Qatar or the United Arab Emirates, why can't they take in the Syrian refugees? Why are we the ones stuck holding the bag, ladies and gentlemen? Let's also keep in mind that these people are going to come here. They're not going to find jobs right off the bat. So that means they're going on welfare programs. They're going to live in government housing, and you're all going to be paying for it. So before we go any further in terms of who's responsible for who, as an individualist, I see no need, no obligation to help any Syrian refugee. At the same time, we should help refugees around the world, but right now we cannot accept 100,000 Syrian refugees. You got to be crazy to think we can without seeing any of the possible terror perspectives going on.
You have to use logic and reason, especially with national security issues. Okay? You can't be pulling the heartstrings of Americans and say, oh, but this is what America's about, the American dream. The immigrants that came that formed America hundreds of years ago were not terrorists. Okay? We're not possible terrorists. I'm not saying all of them are, okay? But it only takes one. One. They have to be right one time. We have to be right all the time.
Right.
Okay? And they threaten Times Square, Washington, D.C., and they're not even here yet. The refugees aren't even here. And they plan on sneaking the ISIS members in with the refugees. They're not stupid. They see what's happening. Obama goes on international television and tells the world what's happening. Okay? We're going to let them in. Oh, how about you go sneak in and say you're not with ISIS? Lie. Oh, how hard is that?
Listen, we're going to go through through some more ISIS talk. We're going to criticize Islam just a little bit more. I want to get into some of the opposite arguments that have been thrown against us. And we got Forget About It Moments of the Week, plus Twitter fan right here on the Vito and Vito Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
Are you among the 64% of Americans who believe our country is going in the wrong direction? If yes, then eVoiceAmerica.com is the political take-action site we've all been waiting for. And it's really free. eVoice America provides your personal list of elected reps every time you log on. This makes it so easy to email your opinions and e-votes on top issues directly to each of our D.C. elected representatives. eVoice then publishes our e-vote majority percentages on top issues to each member of Congress and the media. Now, for the first time in history, we can know what millions of American citizens are telling Congress. No more gridlock. Join the new American majority using eVoiceAmerica.com, putting Americans in control of Congress. Visit eVoiceAmerica.com today. It's free and easy to use. That's eVoiceAmerica.com.
Fighting the Common Core standards? Need a powerful tool to help inform others on this harmful education initiative? You're covered with Common Ground on Common Core, the collection of essays by 20 top education experts and activists. Reviewers call it the best single resource on the topic. You can share it with literally anyone. Order your print or digital copy of Common Ground on Common Core today. Just visit resoundingbooks.org. That's resoundingbooks.org. And get $2 off when you tell them Vito and Vito sent you. Paid for by Resounding Books Pack.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan. Separated. We were able to get in touch with each other in no time.
Idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was fine.
The most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Message.
Some parents plan ahead. Some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ReadyPA.org. Brought to you by ReadyPA, FEMA, and the Ad Council.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save
your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
So what is behind enemy lines anyway?
This is the true story of two friends living in the People's Republic of New York City who work together and have their conversations taped to find out what happens when conservatives stop being politically correct and start getting real. We are Behind Enemy Lines. Watch your wallets. Thursdays at 1 on WNJC, part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network.
And we're back here on the Vito and Vito Show. Check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com. Social media, that's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Vito and Vito Show. Vito.
Vito.
To recap what was happening last half hour. We're going about how Islam is the root of all evil.
I didn't say that.
No.
But I certainly said it has a big, it has evil tendencies, and I would say it's an evil religion. Yeah, I would say that.
Yes, that's what we're talking about, and how about ISIS, the Paris attacks, and the Syrian refugees. Now, Vito.
Okay.
The House passed a bill today to stop refugees coming in from Syria and Iraq until key national security agencies certify them. That passed 289 to 137, with 47 Democrats joining the Republicans in the House.
Ah, look at this. There's your bipartisanship. There's your get things done in Congress motto.
That it can override Obama's veto, because assuming he'll veto, because that's what he does. He just vetoes everything that comes to his desk.
Isn't it funny that the veto's rejection, the president's rejection power, his name's Vito, and you're listening to the Vito and Vito show? Isn't that pretty cool?
It's very cool.
It's pretty embarrassing and sort of demoralizing, but I'll take it, Vito.
Great.
I'll take it.
The only problem with this bill, Vito, is that Harry Reid has vowed to block it.
You know, I hate him.
With his one eye.
I hate Dr. No. I hate him. I hate this man so much. Why would he block something like this? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I got news for you. I'm going to say it, Vito.
Uh-oh.
Harry Reid, President Obama, and the rest of the people supporting the Syrian refugees are either too stupid or hate America. That's right.
Uh-oh.
That's right. I'm saying it. They hate America. They're stupid because they hate America, but they hate America.
There was a poll I saw on Twitter. Who hates America more, Vladimir Putin or Obama? And 95% voted for Obama. So that just shows the confidence Americans have in our supreme leader.
Yeah.
Chancellor. If we had voted no confidence like United Kingdom, Obama would be long gone.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Actually, most people will be long gone. With this kind of Congress, everything will run.
But take it down to this conclusion. I mean, look, if you're the president of the United States, you got one job: protect Americans. All right. If you're in the government, your job is to protect Americans. That's the function of a government. I think we've said this on the show time and time again. The idea of government is to protect life, liberty, and property rights. And now you got a government that is pushing forward an agenda that is probably going to endanger the lives of millions of Americans.
So now, what is our great Congress trying to do to fix this, aside from the House bill? Rand Paul is blocking a spending bill for the transportation and housing because he wants his amendment to be voted on that stops Syrian refugees from entering the country.
Thank God.
Before you vote, you vote on anything on the spending bill, this amendment has to be voted on. So that's what he's trying to push in the Senate. And Ted Cruz, his bill was blocked. That would stop. He's been trying multiple times. A bill that would make you lose your citizenship if you flee the country and join ISIS, which I 100,000% support.
Oh, sure.
Okay? And also his bill to ban all refugees, not just from Syria, but Iraq, Qatar, all these countries that have any terrorist organization, connection, anything like that in the Middle East, to ban all the refugees coming from there. But it got blocked.
You know, I got to say this, though, and I really got to bring this point up. When you're looking at Islam and you're looking at the reasons for these refugees, that guy Brian really hits on. He really hits it hard. Because what he's saying is this. He's saying that if you think about it, these refugees aren't a result of randomness. It's because you have tyrannical dictators in the Middle East that have to suppress Islamic insurrections and caliphates. I'm not defending dictatorships. They're immoral. So is Islam. But I'm just trying to get the point across here. You see so much instability in this region that if these moderate Muslims who are so pent up on the ideas of liberty, as we hear our president say, actually go to the Middle East and meet with the clerics and all these imams and whatever the hell you want to call these people, maybe we'll see some change. But we're not going to see it. We're not going to see it from a president who's not willing to call out radical Islam for what it is. You want to defeat radical Islam? You're not going to defeat it with bombs, ladies and gentlemen, because it's just going to like cockroaches. It's just going to keep coming back. So how do you defeat Islamic terrorism? Very simple. You got to start in the classroom. You got to start with the scholars. You got to start changing and reforming ideas.
Defeat the idea.
You got to defeat the idea. You got to start calling out Islam for what it is. You got to start calling out radical Islamic terrorism. That's what you have to do. You got to start getting people in the New York Times, all the way down to Breitbart, calling out Islam for what it is. And when you do that, you put pressure on the Islamic community to either reform their views or expose them as being radicals. And if you can get the moderate Muslims, because I'm sure they're out there, to rise up in droves and actually call out radical Islamic terrorists and those who support those ideas, Vito, you're going to finally start to see a change in this region. You're not going to get it since the 7th century on with people who just hate this way of life. Or all those that disagree with them, most importantly.
And we hear so many times, I want to bring up this argument that we hear all the time, because You wrote an article.
Oh, boy.
Be proud, Vito. A letter to all liberal, racist students. Right? This is on the website, www.vitomvito.com. And we put this in on Facebook, all over social media, Twitter, everything. And it got traction with some college students at my school, Brooklyn College, who, let's say, they didn't like it that much.
Let's keep in mind, Brooklyn College is also the former home of Bernie Sanders and Al Sharpton.
Barbara Boxer.
Barbara Boxer, right? Who else is a communist that went there?
James Franco.
James.
And then me, Vito, the bastion of light, the only conservative at Brooklyn College. So they hate me. They hate us. So let's make that clear. But
I don't even go there, by the way, and I still have a bad name. But all right, go ahead.
Well, of course. You have the same name. But the argument they keep bringing up about the Syrian refugees is, what if the United States did this with the Jews in Germany? But here's where it doesn't make sense, that argument. Because, well, number one, in the beginning, FDR did not know that Jews were being exterminated by Adolf Hitler. But the Nazis, we didn't take in Nazis, we took in the Jews who were fleeing.
Okay.
Now, even if a Nazi stuck into the United States, is that Nazi wasn't going to blow up Times Square? Okay? That's a part of a political party who supported Hitler and taking over Europe and the world. That's different than accepting refugees who do have a chance of being a terrorist who can blow up Times Square and want to destroy America. Do you see the small difference? That actually makes a big difference? You capiche?
I get you. I get you.
Okay? So, it's like taking in the Nazis, okay, compared to taking in the Syrian refugees. That's what these people try to make the point. And I want you to see these arguments that these liberals and these college progressives are using, because it's not logical. It doesn't make sense. It's liberal logic. It's oxymoron. Okay? So you have to have reason and historical backing to your arguments so they can make sense. That's basically, I learned that in elementary school. I want to thank my 5th grade English teacher for telling me that my arguments need to make sense before I publish anything.
You know, I just find this stuff to be so fascinating and really stuff to be so enlightening. But I think you really got to start asking about these issues. You really want to change these regions. You have to get down to the crux of the problem here. And it starts with Islam as an ideology. And then from there, you grow as you start revolutionizing. But yeah, Islam, evil religion, baby. It's got evil all over it. It talks about slaughtering. I mean, I don't need to go through the Quran with you. I think you could see it for yourself. Islam, under Osama bin Laden, his interpretation is a justified interpretation of the Quran. Because if you look at the Quran and his actions, they go hand in hand. Not just him, but ISIS and the rest of these sick, barbaric animals who got so much sand in their ass it hurts when they make number 2. It's that time of the week again. Forget about it, moments of the week.
What? Forget about it? Forget about it. Forget about it. Oh, forget about it.
That's right. Forget about it, moments of the week. This is when we break down some of the craziest moments that ever happened in this thing that we call the world and the universe. And man, this is going to be a lot of fun. But before we go any further, I want to credit Sal Galero, our intern. Follow him at SallyG315 on Twitter. Right? All right. He titled the show here today, and I fully agree with him. The title of the show, Vito, being Nuke the Bastards. I love it. And I think all of us can agree. Vito? No? You don't agree?
Nuke them.
Why don't you have tea then with Osama bin Laden and Abba Gabba Gabba Gabba?
This escalated quickly.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Go right ahead. What's that first? Oh my. What's the first forget about it moment of the week?
A Tennessee girl is pleading guilty for smuggling a gun in her vagina.
Okay.
She has to pay $1,000 in fines. Now, why is this relevant?
Why?
One, because people are stupid enough to smuggle things in their vagina. 2, if we can actually use the Second Amendment and not have to smuggle these things, then maybe you won't have to smuggle things in your vagina.
I get it. I get it. All right, I got to give it to you there, Vito. I see where you're going with this. Next, forget about it moment of the week.
A student at Georgia State University called out Black Lives Matter publicly.
Oh, here we go.
And she lost her job, and students are demanding her expulsion from the college.
Wow. Listen, I just want to hit on this about the stupid Black Lives Matter, this racist, disgusting organization. I hate all of these people that claim that white privilege exists and Black Lives Matter.
Your whiteness is showing.
No, shut up, you racist. Let's break this down. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about Black Lives Matter and this notion of white privilege up on www.vitoandvito.com. I recently wrote an article, like Vito has alluded to before in the show, called A Letter to Liberal Racist College Students. We all see what's going on college campuses, and as college students, it's disgusting to see what's happening to the once great university system. It's being destroyed. So let's break it down, ladies and gentlemen. What do we see, Vito, from Black Lives Matter, and what do we see from this notion of white privilege, the students that agree with this stuff?
With the Million March, Million Student March, and demanding free stuff, and the Bernie Sanders supporting, and the anti-Americanism.
Yes. That's what we see, exactly. He sees anti-American ideas, he sees anti-liberty perspectives. Okay, now let's break it down on another perspective. I wrote that article. Vito, like he said, and he said it earlier in the show, shared it in a bunch of Facebook groups and all stuff like that. So it's gaining some traction. And again, I encourage you to check out www.vitoandvito.com and take a look at the article for yourself. It's a strongly worded letter to college students. It is meant to be sort of a rant, but that's what we do here on the show. Well, a lot of these college students started taking it the wrong way. A lot of these progressive, socialist, communist, totalitarian, fascist students took it the wrong way. And boy, did they take it the wrong way when I said you people are nothing but a bunch of racist fools. Your privilege is showing. You don't know what it's like to be black. And now this poor girl is getting fired from where? The University of Tennessee?
Georgia State.
Georgia. The University of Georgia State. She's getting fired because she spoke out. She spoke out against this movement. She said it's a waste of time. And now people are demanding her resignation. Disgusting.
And she lost her job.
She lost her job. She lost her pay over what she speaks about. That's wrong, man. That is absolutely wrong. She wasn't infringing on the rights of other people, nor was she destroying the rights of the business that she works for.
All because she had an opinion.
She has an opinion, but you know what? She was victimized for it. You know what she's like to me? I would compare this woman. I don't know her name. I don't know where she's from.
Georgia State.
Whatever. I don't know any of this stuff. I don't know her age or any of that stuff. But to me, she's like Galileo. That's what she's like. She's a hero. She stands up for free speech, and that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. It goes all the way back to the Islamic conversation we were having earlier on in the show. The whole idea of this political correct culture is not to have you say things that might offend other people. And we have misinterpreted the First Amendment to mean, no longer is it, Vito, that you can say what you want, when you want, how you want it, so long as nobody's getting hurt. Now it means you can't say anything if it happens to offend somebody sitting in the back of the auditorium on the seat that has a limp.
I don't get where people get these misinterpretations from. Pretty specific.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And
forget about it.
Forget about it. But
it's a shame.
It is a shame, but it's stuff like this that really bothers me and it grinds my gears because when you're looking at it, this country was built on the idea of free speech. I thought the revolution was started by the printing press, the ideas of John Locke, the writings of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, and all the founders out there. It was all started by freedom of speech, and it's being ripped apart. We're not allowed to talk about Islamic terrorism. We're not allowed to call out Islam as a bunch of evil ideas. We're not allowed to talk about the tyranny going on college campuses. We're not allowed to talk about white privilege and how stupid it is. We're not allowed to talk about the racist organization known as Black Lives Matter for fear of being victimized. And now, according to this woman, at the university,
Georgia State University.
Whatever. She got fired for speaking out against Black Lives Matter. I hope nothing but the best for her, and I hope she stands up to these totalitarian Nazis out there. What's our last forget about it moment of the week?
We actually have two more.
Okay.
Okay, because I had to throw this extra one in.
All
Well,
right.
this was the original.
Mhm.
According to Telegraph in the United Kingdom, 26% of British men claim to have quote-unquote man periods.
No wonder that spotting under your chair was something that I...
And
I've never
58%
seen
women
before.
believe them.
What? 58% believe them?
Of women believe them.
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
Maybe we've gone to a point, lady, where stupidity has become the new normal. You know, you hear that a lot in economics, the new normal, only 2% GDP growth, 1% GDP growth.
4%.
No, well, you're not getting that.
That's the new normal.
1.5. That's the new normal. You better deal with it. This is the new normal.
The Great Depression. You better deal with it.
This is stupidity upon the highest degree. 58% of women in England believe that men get periods. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You believe that?
Well, when you don't want to go out with a chick on a Saturday night, Vito, you could tell her, look, I'm on my period. There's really nothing I can do.
Great. I want to do the show next week, Vito.
What happens if you miss one? What's our last forget about it moment of the week?
Bill de Blasio,
Uh-huh.
the socialist leading our great city.
Yeah, comrade.
Banned hoverboards in New York City. Not the hoverboards.
Now, you know what a hoverboard is?
Sure.
Okay, look it up online.
Google it.
As I go to Google this thing called a hoverboard.
It's like those skateboards, but it hovers, and you kind of float around.
It's called a Segway. It's called a Segway. New York City calls them a hoverboard. But yeah, like you said, you press on a button or something and it takes you around somewhere.
Like a magic carpet.
Okay.
But these are apparently automobiles. So they're banned.
Unbelievable.
Okay?
Yep. You believe that?
Unbelievable. Next to skateboards. How about the scooter? You want to ban that?
Yeah, I find this to be, again, going back to this notion of the totalitarian world we live in with these people. This is what we're living in, ladies and gentlemen. We're living in a totalitarian system, a state right now, especially in New York. Comrade Bill de Blasio, who apparently thinks he's speaking on behalf of all the Syrian refugees and how great he is as a person.
He wants to give them IDs, too.
Yeah, he wants to give them IDs and driver's license like they want to do in New Jersey. He's calling out people for being heartless, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, Mayor de Blasio is the same anti-cop mayor who cannot stand people with different opinions. This is the guy that has destroyed the city of New York to the point of no return, in my opinion. This is what we're sitting in nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. You got a disaster on your hands, and now you have the ultimate totalitarian regime where hoverboards, technological innovation is being destroyed because the government, this local New York City government, cannot regulate a Segway, a hoverboard. Look them up online, if you will. But there's a little cool new type skateboard thing.
Unbelievable.
Because it's considered an automobile.
Right.
How disgusting.
Banning hoverboards, soda.
You know who plays with stuff like that? Children. I want to see what the NYPD is going to do. Hopefully the NYPD, because I do trust them a lot, is going to be a smart group of cops, and they're going to say, look, we're not going to bust kids for riding a little scooter. I mean, that's absurd.
You thought busting kids with a little pot was bad.
Yeah, really?
A hoverboard.
Really?
A hoverboard. What about the wheelies? Remember the kids with the Skechers with the little wheel in the back?
Yeah.
Is that an automobile because you're going to go flying? Give me a break. We can go on and on about New York City, especially what really grinds my gears, Vito, is the new speed limit.
That's okay? Right. They've recently lowered the speed limit here in New York City.
From 30 down to 25 miles per hour. You know why?
Why?
Because apparently it saves more lives.
Okay.
But you know what else saves a lot of lives?
What?
If you make it 15 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 5.
10.
5. You know, ban cars, they kill.
That's right.
They kill and hurt my feelings.
Ban guns, ban cars, ban knives, ban baseball bats. Everyone gets a bubble.
You're
all paid for by the taxpayer, and we're all going to live in a big bubble, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you know that an average of 3 Americans die each year by bendy straws?
Should we ban that too?
I think people are just stupid. Okay? You can die anyway. Okay?
Yep. It's a frightening situation, Vito. It's all over. It's all over. We are in so much trouble here, but I gotta say, it's that time to wrap up our show. But before we go, we do have a Twitter fan. That's right, Twitter fan of the week. Who's that Twitter fan?
At Maria X333. Now let me spell it for you folks. MAARIAAA X333.
Is it XXX or X times 3?
No. It's AA, not XX. Vito. It's MAARIAA X333.
Okay, so who is this? Like a little girl that
I don't know.
Goes to our show?
I don't know.
She's like a Justin Bieber fan or something. No, she's in the audience and she retweeted us, so we got to give her a shout out. Congratulations, Maria. You're welcome.
She bought it.
She bought it. She paid a hefty price for this, ladies and gentlemen. This is about to wrap up the show here on the Vito and Vito Show. Check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com. Go ahead and check out us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Vito and Vito Show. And, like we said, check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com. Take a look at the new article up about my letter to college students, liberal, racist college students, and Black Lives Matter. I hate you all.
Check out the website, vitoandvito.com.
Unbelievable. But we are signing off here on the Vito and Vito Show. We will see you next time because we love you. In Brooklyn,
it's nothing but the truth.